I'm going to mostly end this mystical part of the talk with one piece that this is sort of my experience of these concepts and the relationship. So when we talk about the spirit like that, so we have whether Chachma is first or second. There's a supernal triad supposedly of either Keter, Chachma, and Bina, crown, wisdom, and understanding, or Chachma, Bina, and Da'at. But in any case, those are a level of creation that come before the bottom 7 Sefirot, and the bottom 7 Sefirot are the 7 days of creation. So and the point I'd like to make then is that this world that we're talking about, that we could say starts with, on day 1, when God started creating the world, that the mystics are saying there's a reality plane of the divine that's outside of this creation, completely outside of this creation. The lower 7 Sefirot are what results in this creation. And so in that sense, Chachma is outside of this reality plane. And the experiential piece, I'd say, and I think I gave a talk last time on the nature of mind, which I also called Mochin Dekatnut, small mind, how our minds work. And one of the things I believe happens, in my experience, is that these practices that we're teaching, and this is a little addition to what Norman said this morning in answering the question, what makes this Jewish meditation? That one aspect of Jewish mysticism is to work on the concept of bitul hayesh, sort of a nullification of the ego, in order that one might be united with the divine. And I think the practices that we're doing in the most practical way are, from my experience, the surest way, and I take the superlative out, are sort of a sure way for working on nullifying the ego in order that we might experience the divine on realms bigger than what exists, than what we would talk about as being in this creation. And in my experience, when I am able to still that discursive level of mind, that level of mind that's talking and thinking and planning and figuring out how this, and that's what we were calling Mochin Dekatnut, small mind. When that mind sort of settles down and is just present to what's arising without judging it, without needing other things, and in a certain way just so present that it's actually not self-referencing. There's just knowing happening without self-referencing. That in my experience, it's in those moments, and because of those moments, that I experience a sense of, I would call it wisdom, that there's all of a sudden things that I had no idea I knew, I now know. I actually, what it feels like experientially to me, if you remember the movie, I said some of this before, but you remember the movie Charlie with Cliff Robertson? He's a janitor and he works in some lab and he takes this stuff, some chemical, they discover some chemical that's going to make mice super smart, and so then they test it on him and he becomes this super smart genius. And he's living a wonderful life because now he's wise, not a janitor anymore. And then later they see the mice it's not permanent. The mice are going back to normal. And so then he starts working with all his great intelligence to figure out how to make it last, and he can't. So that's sort of sometimes my experience on retreat. For a while I get really wise. And I even can feel it leaving sometimes. And like there's that regret that he had in the week. So what I think, I would describe that in mystical terms, is that at some point I feel like we have, not just me, that we actually have access to some wisdom that's beyond what's here. That there's moments when that door opens up. Anyways, that's what I would call Chachma. That's a kind of wisdom. And but there's a much more mundane level of Chachma as well. So that's sort of on a supernal level that happens. But when I have that experience, it all relates to, it comes from sort of leaving the small mind. But what I think is valuable about it is all translates into things that I find incredibly helpful and useful in living in this regular little body and living a normal life. And so there's a tremendous amount of mundane wisdom that also is obtained, and that's what I'm really interested in talking about, sort of from here forward, is the possibility of mundane wisdom, of what it means to be here in this body, that having an average day kind of wisdom, like I talked about that first night. What do we need to have average days as opposed to miserable days? So how do we get that wisdom? Some of it comes as intuitive wisdom from getting still. But more than that, I think what happens is we use the still place to then watch all the bumps in the road. So I've shared this story, I don't know if it was this group. A student once asked a teacher, how can I be happy? And wisdom could apply just as well. How can I be wise? How can I get wisdom? But the story, the way it goes, is how can I be happy? So, and the teacher says to the student, that's simple, just exercise good judgment. And the student says, that's good. But then the student said, well, how do I learn to have good judgment? And the teacher says, that's simple, just through experience. Good. And then the student thinks again, well, how do I get experience? And the teacher says, through bad judgment. So that's how it works. And so we have that verse too, that the one that the mystics use to say, Chachma and Reshit are connected. So we have this verse, Reshit Chachma Yirat Adonai. So that's as I said, that's a teaching from our wisdom literature about wisdom. We have books, especially Proverbs and Pirkei Avot, is our classically considered Jewish wisdom literature, and they deal with the topic of wisdom. And so if you go right to those sources, they say the beginning of wisdom, the absolute beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. So, and if fear, I don't know about you, but on the surface, that there's something that grates a little bit the wrong way about that teaching. If you want to get why, you have to be afraid of God, fear of God. So fear has really two senses to it, and the Zohar even says three senses. So in the Zohar it says there are three levels of fear. So the first is in terms of fear of God. So the first is a fear of retribution in this life, and the second is a fear of retribution in the life to come. And that's the kind, I think, fear of God. That's how we get wisdom. And the Zohar calls those evil fears. Those are the evil fears that exist. And then there's a third fear, which we really use the word awe, rather than the word fear, and in terms of English. And it's the awe of understanding. Now, in our language, I'd say it's the awe of understanding that, in fact, this is all just the divine presence manifesting. That it's the kind of awe that you get as the small sense of self recedes, and as you feel the connection to this whole giant thing, how it's all unfolding in some interconnected way. The awe we feel at that, and when you have that experience, it is an awesome experience. It's, to realize the connection with all things, to be part of that. So that's the holy fear. So that's the. But nevertheless, wisdom comes from all of those. I think it's it's not so much. I wouldn't exactly say the fear of retribution, but the truth is, as that little story said, that little vignette about through bad judgment. It's the fact that, as I think as we've all been saying, as Norman said the other day, you sit here and you pay attention to what's going on, and it's like shocking. And you think about what's going on in your life, and there are many difficult things that we're dealing with. It's very hard to be a human being. And it's because it's hard to be a human being that we start to try to figure out how to do it. it is really the source of why we start paying attention.